Hello, everybody. I'm just going to make sure we're truly live and we got audio. Try it one more time. There we go. And I can hear myself even better. Okay, let's talk. So what I'd like to do for the next little while is kind of give a sum total of the knowledge that I've learned in my process of what we'll call Ascension. There's a lot of confusion out there about what Ascension is. I'd like to make it really simple for everyone. It's kind of moving out of duality and low vibration and the density that has been required to be a human soul or a human from your soul into this reality that we're living in, this earth, this 3D or 3D density. Basically, we make a choice as a soul or as a part of God or as part of source or universe or whatever to come into being in this density. And in this density, a lot of learning can be done that can't be done in our higher, what we want to call oversoul or our higher self. So we basically come, I wouldn't call it a vacation, but you could call it like an experience where a soul that's always been part of love and light and God and this beautiful creation that we can create at any time. And we chose to limit ourselves and to go into a state of self-exploration as a soul. And then we basically put a veil in place and we come and we devise a soul contract and a whole bunch of things to come and put ourselves through to learn, to see how our reaction is, to see what we do. And to come into this place, a lot of agreements are made to be attached to and to feel density. And there's a lot of control and looshing, or which is stealing of spiritual energy from people that come as being part of this density and experiencing some of these things that can't exist in any other density. So that's why the 3D density or human or duality is created. So duality is basically our step into humanness. So we're a part of the oversoul or God. Oh, geez, my background's working kind of funny. I'm a little ethereal today. Our God self basically comes and makes a contract to come into this density. So we choose parents, we choose situations, we choose our marriages, we choose all this stuff before we come and design situations that we're going to learn from. And it requires us to go to a fairly low density. Now, when duality comes, we basically step out of our connection to source. And when we choose out of our connection to source, thank you, Kirsty, we invite an ego in, our ego. So basically ego comes in and it basically is protection. It's like, oh, you just did something wrong. You separated from source, and it allows this soul or this part of your soul to live in an existence that's separated. And ascension is essentially moving back to a situation where you're reconnecting to your source self, to God, to your higher self, to your oversoul. There's tons of different terms used. And we have to work through the density and the programming that we've got. We have an ego that comes that tries to keep us in fear and forces us to live in fear. Basically, false evidence appearing real of a situation that says we're lesser than our God self, or else we'd be just co-creating beautifully and lots of beautiful, amazing stuff would happen. But if we didn't have this density around us or this not worthiness or other things that the ego comes and helps us with, it's the only mechanism that allows us to have a 3D density experience. So now we get to this place where this 3D density place is so full with control, darkness, really mangled up versions of creation that now we're having to transcend through this to help pull humanity, pull the density up. And there's only so much density that we can move by ourselves. So we've got this collective that's doing the same thing at the same time. Some are living in the darker experiences, some are living in the lighter experiences, but we're all kind of pulled out of our source self. So ascension is the process of us moving through our density of ego, our density of programming, our density of being in this 3D human experience, and transcending it. So now we're having to unwind, to undefine ourselves, to remove all the stuff that's been layered on. Think of it as a layers of muck that have been created around us through trauma, through social conditioning, through church, through religion, through our parents, epigenetic lineage. We can get into all these things in later discussions, but we're basically now moving through those vibrations and taking that situation where we're very heavy and dense, and now starting to release it. And we're becoming lighter as we go. As the density, like think of us as light. And as that light is denser and denser and denser, it gets darker and darker and darker, and it compresses us and it makes us small. And then we believe that we can be a victim. We believe we can be taken advantage of. We believe our power can be taken. We believe there's darkness in the world, or we believe there's evil or Satan or all these other things, which basically is programming that's placed upon us to keep us so that we can have this three-dimensional human experience and make these really deep soul knowings about ourselves, like working through a trauma, let's say a rape, for example, or whatever. We're looking at our boundaries, we're looking at our programming, we're looking at what our church and religion and what sexuality is and what violence is and all these things. And to go to that really dense experience, we have to have the ego, we have to have the trauma, we have to have the density of all these thoughts, this belief that there's something wrong with us, or we're not deserving, or we're a victim, is a very unique experience in the whole system of source and God. And you can only get it here in this 3D dimensional reality. So basically the process of ascension is now starting to realize that we've picked up this density, we've picked up this self-definition, we've collected all these traumas, we've collected all these beliefs about ourselves, all this programming about how the world works and what's okay and what's not okay and what's possible and not possible. And suddenly we're starting to see things differently. We're all of a sudden saying, okay, there's something wrong here. There's a density here that doesn't align with me. There's people that are abusing people. These are people that are stealing my power, and I'm giving my power away. And I'm starting to become aware of it. And as I become aware of it, a lot of people speak of things like self-love and awareness and all these things. Those are, I don't know what you call it, like a symptom or a state of awareness that starts to grow in us as we awaken. So now all of a sudden we're like, okay, there's something wrong here, and I don't have any of the power left in my body, or my love's not in my body. I've been giving it away. I've been attaching to people to get my love. I've been attaching and using narcissistic mechanisms and codependency and all these passive aggressive things. And we start to become aware of it, and we start to see how it's like an inversion of our energy, and it's kind of twisted our understanding of ourselves and our boundaries and what we allow other people to bring into our life. And as we become aware of it, we get this very beautiful, intimate knowledge of why it's mangled up and why your beliefs were causing it. And we start to do what is calling ascension, right? We shine light into it and we get truth from it, and we understand, okay, this is an inversion. This is a side effect of my trauma. This is an epigenetic lineage problem where my parents didn't deal with this, and I'm now dealing with it as a part of that lineage. And you start to rise above. So we're like cleaning and washing. And remember, I talked about we're kind of caked in this muck of our experience and what our beliefs are, that we're bad or we're wrong or we're not good enough or whatever. And then we start washing away those things. We deal with a whole bunch of inner child worthiness issues or fear and discomfort of the inner child. And we start to soothe that, and we start to realize that that's a part of us. And as we ascend and we go back to our innocence and purity, which is our brightness of our light and our ascension, those things come back. We can start to believe that we're not making mistakes. We're not doing wrong. We're not purposely hurting people. It's what programmed into our head and our beliefs and how we were taught as children that is teaching us to do things in this mangled, weird way. So we start to now become aware of things that are hurting us, and we can make choices. So it's like, okay, everything in our reality is a choice. And this is going to be hard for some people, because people that are victims, let's say they had an abuse or they had violence in their life or they got attacked or whatever, you won't realize this because only your oversoul or your higher self knows it, but it chose these things that we think happened to us. They happened for us. They were given to us as a tool to start to see who we are and what our power is, and to regain our power and to unwind the old programming. And that's going to be really hard for some people. And we get into this state of, to ascend, we have to do, firstly, we have to be self-responsible. So we have to understand that everything's happening for us, not to us. And then we get into accountability, the anger, the frustration, the I hate this, or I'm a victim, or whatever. We start to have to be accountable and realize that by choosing to be a victim, we're giving our power away. And more people are going to come into our life and try and give us that lesson again. So you may get abused multiple times, or it may keep happening because you're giving your power away. And you didn't know that you didn't have to give your power away. And eventually you'll just find out that you're in these circles or these patterns that are eventually washing us up until the point that we don't give our power away anymore. I had an example of like landlords over the last few years, and these landlords expect that you give all your power and you're like a vassal to them and you do whatever they tell you when you're in their house, which you don't really have to do. You're giving money to this person to have a place where you can be yourself and do whatever you want. So we get these experiences that show up, and they're very greatly cherished experiences, because this is the only place that you can receive those kind of things. It doesn't happen in an inverted reality. So our ascension is basically pushing us up against a bunch of experiences until eventually we learn. And once we learn and we see the light under it, we start to take our power back. We start to take our light back, and we start to realize that we're bigger and better and stronger than we thought. And the thought is the screwed up part. What are you feeling in your heart? We're moving through the ascension and getting out of brain control and all this stuff that's driving us nuts, and going into our heart and starting to feel in our body. Does this feel good? Does this feel right? There's something wrong here. This guy's not treating me right, and I'm not standing up for myself. And that doesn't mean violence or whatever. You're just starting to say, no more. I'm not going to accept that. This is bullshit. And once you start to see that starting to show, magic starts to happen, because your possibility opens up, your light shines, and things get better. That's what ascension is, and that's why we're doing all these things, is trying to get through all this stuff, and the programming and ascension and lineage stuff is all mangled together, and ascension is just poking us to get us to look and work through those things. So I had a bunch of things in my list here. Why does it feel like I'm losing everything? So in ascension, you're breaking down all the patterns, all the programming, all the false foundations, all the shit that's really not serving you. And it's giving you a chance to see why they weren't serving you, and then to let them go, and then to rebuild from a better place, or actually detach from the old so that you're now free. And then you can naturally allow new stuff to come in. So you may be losing friends and family that were dealing passive aggressively. You're having to set strong boundaries with people. You're having to have hard discussions with people to really show them that you want for yourself, you love yourself, and everything's good. So it may feel like it's falling away and you don't have anybody left, but it's also a verification that you're making choices and things are improving. And if they weren't aligned with you and it wasn't working, and it's not your job to change people or whatever, sometimes it's like, I don't need you in my life anymore. And that's why it feels like you're losing some people. That can be family members, that can be relationships, that can be family, kids, et cetera, et cetera. I've had to lose a lot of everything, homes and people and money and all these things. But as I go deeper and I start to honor myself more, I feel something beautiful starting to grow inside. Why is ascension needed? there's a lot of density in this world, and we're starting to see that density and control and all that power starting to squeeze the life out of everyone. So we have to go back and start seeing it and starting to see the truth under it, the density under it, and the lack of light, and where there's untruth going on. And as we shine new light into it, and as we ascend for ourselves, that light shines into all these things, and then we start to see the truth of it, so that we can have a 3D density that doesn't have to have all that attachment and the darkness. And if we don't have this, it's just basically making darker and darker and darker, and the density will get so, it's like kind of like a black hole. It'll get so bad that it's going to suck all the light in. So that's why source is changing everything, and all this stuff is starting to show up. So it's needed. It's been going on for many millennia, and that's why it's so complicated. It's so heavy. There's just so much crap to clean up that it's got to be done. Where do I go if I ascend? So basically, we're not trying to leave this place. We're trying to create. What we don't realize is we're creators of our own reality, and when we're in duality or density of being a human being in the 3D reality, we just lose awareness that we're actually creating ourselves. And then all these factors from outside start to manipulate us and control us, and news media and advertising and movies and TV and the way people talk and religion. And then eventually it twists our creation. We're still always creating. So you'll see sometimes that what you want shows up, but in this mutated kind of way, because reality is all mangled up, and it's got our beliefs and thoughts that we're not worthy, etc., all mixed together. So what we're doing is to try and stay in this body, be at a 5D vibration, and then create from a 5D vibration where things come up in purity. We now have cleaned all that muck off of ourselves, of programming, etc., and started to project with a pure light. So think of our mind as the projector, where right now our mind is believed to be our consciousness. But if we switch and say, okay, our heart is our consciousness, our body is is our vessel, and our mind is basically the projector out, and it doesn't have to control, and it doesn't have to sit there. That's why it gets in the monkey mind and gets all confused. But if we stay in here in our heart and start to believe, and that's the movement, the light shines out from our heart, and then what we want shows up. It doesn't get mangled. It doesn't get all twisted, and our reality is our own every single time. So just be aware of that. And we're creating a new reality. We're co-creating it with other people, and we've got a shared reality through religion and businesses and government and all this stuff that we've learned. But right now it's kind of twisted our ability and said, this is good, this is bad, this isn't right, this is right, etc., which is a big mess. So we're cleaning that up. We're shifting it. And then the final question I had said, well, why would I want to ascend? Well, are you enjoying your experience right now? Does it feel like the world is giving you your ability to be free and do what you want, or is it really controlling you? So Ascension, most people came here as part of the Ascension to have an experience of this density, of this kind of blowing up of the foundations that's going on in the world. And there's all this intense light coming in to support us. And it feels tight in our body, and we're exhausted because we're having to give up a good portion of what we believe and what we think and what's truth for us. And it feels like we're dying. We're letting go of everything. We're losing everything, but we're getting lighter and lighter and lighter with each step. And it's part of the process. It's a beautiful process, and it gives us our freedom over time. But what we're experiencing now is maybe 1,000th of what's possible, or maybe even more. What if you could create all the abundance you want? And what if you could be rich and it had nothing to do with good versus bad or competition or any of that kind of stuff, or even paying for services? What if everybody could just go on trips that they wanted, have the nicest house that they want, have all these things? Most people wouldn't believe it because their reality has programmed us to say that's not possible. And if somebody doesn't win or somebody isn't better than everybody else, then there's no value. It's all bullshit. It's all programmed to tell that certain people are better than other people, and that they should be rich or they should control you. And that's not right. So Ascension is going through that, cleaning and cleansing yourself of all beliefs, of all labels, of all programming, of all traumas, of all this kind of stuff. So if it feels like you're exploding inside and it hurts like hell, You're right. It is. That's the process. And there's no pop and I'm ascended. Like, there's so many spiritual people out there and teachers that are saying that they just got it all figured out. Well, I'm going to ask you a question. So go watch these people. There's certain people that are gurus and spiritual teachers that say they got lots of money, and they're just like mild out. They're just so busy chasing money. They don't even have a life of their own, but somehow they're being successful, and they've won, or they're better than you and they can go on trips or whatever. Well, great. But that's not really ascension. That's just people that are stuck in the fear of money and other things. And people won't like this because it's tearing down their ego, etc. When you have the ability to be able to live, to have a house, to be in a safe foundation, etc., without having a job, without having to chase money, without having to have clients, without all this kind of stuff. These are all constructs of 3D that are pulling us into busyness. And busyness is chasing to be successful, for people to admire you, to people to follow you, etc., etc. Facebook's really bad for this, but it's not about busyness. It's about finding ourselves. It's about finding our calm. It's about being and allowing what you need to do and see show up. But if you're chasing to get the kids to soccer practice and get supper made and go to job and get the laundry done, get clean, do you ever have any time to look at yourself? Well, that's by design. And then you crash and you have midlife crises and you get divorces and other things, or you lose your job and you get COVID or something. And it's disgusting. You get to the end of it and you're just like, I have no time for myself. I'm not doing any introspection. Basically, you're a little hamster on a hamster wheel. And we're trying to get you out of that hamster wheel. You're trying to rise above the need for all those beliefs and chasing and all this kind of stuff and start to be yourself. And then as you're being yourself, you're starting to find things are messy and weird, and we need to change that. And once we get to change that, things get better. So that's essentially what I see as ascension. It's not a process of just popping and going, wee, I'm happy, or I'm all love. No, it's a process of cleaning yourself, cleaning up all your old karma, cleaning up all the stuff, and magic starts to happen at that point. So I love you all. Please take a listen. If you got any questions, put them down in the box below, and I'll put out something else tomorrow. We'll see what comes up as the topic for tomorrow. I love you. Thank you for joining, and I look forward to seeing you again. Have a good one. I'm going to go over here and hit the Ed and Bacher podcast button. Bye.